Hello, colleagues. Welcome to this IPPN 24th session. I'm Ernesto Calderon. I work at the UNESCO headquarters in Paris. I'm a program specialist in charge of donor relations at the Bureau of Strategic Planning. And I'm very happy to be here today with you. I'll be giving a very short introduction about this session, and then I will hand over to our speakers today. So first, maybe to say that the IPPN, it is a one-stop, this network is a one-stop shop for integrated policy practitioners operating as a knowledge hub for the global community. And IPPN aims to link existing efforts of the SDG integration across agencies, UN agencies, governments, civil society, academia, and the private sector. UNESCO, as a specialized UN agency, joined this IPPN network only last year with the aim of contributing to this very active network in the areas of our competence, that is education, culture, freedom of expression, and safety of journalists, and the role of sciences in achieving the SDGs. UNESCO is fully committed to the UN reform efforts and is an active member of the UN development system. As you may know, one of the important outcomes of the Secretary General's Our Common Agenda was the Transforming Education Summit, the TESS, that took place at the 77th UN General Assembly in 2022. UNESCO co-organized this together with the UN Secretariat and held even a pre-summit in Paris earlier that year. At the SDG Summit in 2023, during the 78th UNGA, 6 key transitions were identified to boost the SDGs. UNESCO works across a number of these 6 key transitions, and namely digital connectivity, education, and climate change, and biodiversity loss. And today we will be discussing education precisely, and how UNESCO has put into practice this post-Transforming Education Summit implementation with a case in Jordan that we consider a successful story on how the government, UNESCO, and partners mobilized around a UN single agency pool fund to support a country that has been seeing waves of strong pressures on their education system. So before we start, maybe a little housekeeping that I would like to recall. First, please do keep your microphone muted. Second, this event is being recorded and it will be made available later today. Third, don't hesitate to post your reactions, your insights, learning, or questions in the chat throughout, and we will be answering those during the Q&A and the open floor segment later. So about today's session, as I said before, is the 24th learning session organized in this network. And we are very delighted to present you with 3 speakers. We will be exploring different aspects of the SDG 4, that is SDG on Education Acceleration Program, and discussing the main enabling factors contributing to the success of this system strengthening partnership in Jordan. So without further ado, I would like to introduce our panel, which is composed by Dr. Kala Hattab, who is the Executive Director and of the Development Coordination Unit of the Ministry of Education in Jordan. Mr. Samuel Snotzel, he is the Head of Cooperation at the Embassy of Canada to Jordan. And my colleague, Shirin Eldali, who is the Program Manager of this System Strengthening Portfolio in UNESCO's Amman office. So Shirin, the floor is all yours, so you can start with the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ernesto, and good afternoon and good morning, colleagues. It's my pleasure to be here with you today. So we'll start by discussing what is our system strengthening partnership program with the Ministry of Education in Jordan, and why is it a critical lever to transform education and accelerate progress towards SDG 4. Next slide, please. Thank you. So The System Strengthening Partnership Program with Jordan's Ministry of Education was designed in 2019 as a partnership with the Ministry of Education in Jordan to help implement and monitor the education sector plan that was developed with UNESCO's technical assistance, and to strengthen the institutional systems and capacities to be able to implement that plan. The Ministry of Education's education sector plan is anchored in SDG 4 and really aims to help the education system be more responsive, effective, efficient, and resilient in order to ensure that no child or youth is left behind. Next slide. So the System Strengthening Partnership Program is really a flagship partnership that we have here at UNESCO, and a flagship program. As my colleague Ernesto mentioned, it is funded by a multi-partner trust fund that includes Canada, Italy, Norway through in-kind contribution, and Switzerland. And Norway's in-kind contribution is done through 5 technical experts deployments to UNESCO to support the Ministry of Education and the implementation of the SSP program that includes monitoring and evaluation, gender, crisis and risk management, data analysis, statistics, and partnership and coordination. So this is the pool of expertise in addition to the in-house expertise that UNESCO can bring that helps in the implementation of this SSP program. Now, the SSP is governed by a steering committee, which includes all the MPTF partners, the Ministry of Education, and UNESCO, that is governed through biannual meetings. And this is important. I think my colleague Simon will mention later on today in the presentation of how this governing structure and multi-partner trust fund has really been one of the enabling factors to help the Ministry of Education with their strategic planning. So I won't talk too much about this now, but I think what's important to flag is really that the pool fund model, which has been very flexible and has been very responsive to the needs of the Ministry of Education, has really helped UNESCO be able to position itself as a strategic partner with the Ministry of Education in order to help support this evidence-based strategic planning. It's also allowed for some complementary technical support and financial support as well through other partners, EU, GIZ, and now more recently GPE, which will be mentioned a little bit, which will be discussed a little bit later on. And really, this partnership has led into a model that allows for more ownership and sustainable capacity development and system strengthening. Next slide. So here you can see some of the strategic areas of the support of UNESCO's System Strengthening Partnership Program and in support of the ESP. You'll see 10 areas of support, which really are the foundations of what will help build a strong education system. So you have everything from gender equality in education, monitoring and evaluation, data, the SDG 4s and the process of monitoring and reporting and benchmarking on the SDG 4s, the financial resource planning component, partnership coordination, strategic planning, which also includes financial crisis and risk management, data information management systems. So all of these 10 thematic areas of strategic support are also some of the areas of support where UNESCO can bring a lot of added value and a lot of technical support to the Ministry of Education. And these were identified as some of the areas when the education sector plan was developed back in 2018. These were identified as the areas that needed some strengthening in order to make sure that the Ministry of Education is fully capable of realizing the goals that are in the ASP. Now, these are also areas of support that continue to be identified as areas that need further investment when we look at education. So not just in Jordan, but elsewhere as well, when we look at where we can strengthen systems in order to reach the ambitious targets of the SDGs. And we see this most recently at the Global Education Forum that took place at the end of October, early November in Fortaleza, Brazil, where the Fortaleza Declaration was signed, and system strengthening was really identified as an area of strategic support and an action area that was instrumental to accelerate the progress of SDG 4. And most, if not all, of the areas that are mentioned in the Fortaleza Declaration when it comes to system strengthening are covered under the System Strengthening Partnership Program. So this is really a model that can be replicated and used in other contexts in order to help accelerate the goals of SDG 4. Next slide. So what have we managed to do in terms of achievement under the System Strengthening Partnership Program? I won't go over all the details of all the achievements because it's quite large. We've been running this program since 2019, so we have a huge amount of things that we've worked and achieved together with the Ministry of Education and our partners. But perhaps some of the more strategic areas that are important to highlight today is that we see that as a result of the SSP program, with the Ministry of Education, with UNESCO support, was really able to build the foundations for stronger governance, monitoring, and evaluation and implementation of their education strategic plan. Now, how did we do that? We did this really through investing heavily in the Ministry of Education's monitoring and evaluation systems, and looking at a full review of how they were doing their monitoring and evaluation of their education sector plan, annual reviews of their education sector plan, a midterm review of the education sector plan, review of roles and responsibilities, processes, tools as well, automating these tools in their education management information system so that they have this digitized. So these are really areas that UNESCO invested in with the Ministry of Education in order to have a better monitoring and implementation. And by default, this also impacted the way the Ministry of Education was monitoring and reporting on their SDG 4 as well. And we see that Jordan is quite strong when it comes to their global, regional, and national monitoring and benchmarking of SDG 4. The second area of strategic achievement, we looked at really mobilizing support around a common agenda for all education stakeholders. And this is also along the humanitarian development nexus. So Jordan is actually, with their education sector plan, really a very strong example of doing sector planning that includes both humanitarian and development. When they did the education sector plan in 2018, it was really at the height of the Syria refugee crisis, and Jordan hosts one of the largest refugee populations in the world. So the fact that the education sector plan included refugees from the onset was very inclusive and was something that was extremely important to allow them to respond to the refugee crisis, but of course also to the very important and pressing needs of the education sector for Jordanians as well. And so how did we help mobilize this? So having an education sector plan is extremely important, but then it's also having the strong coordination and partnership and coordination mechanisms around the education sector plan that brought all the education actors together, all the partners together with the ministry in the lead, has really helped having this common policy dialogue to identify jointly where are the gaps and where are the actions, what are the priority actions that need to be taken together. And this has also further helped as well look at advancing the inclusive education agenda, which Jordan also is quite strong and leading on when it comes to inclusion and diversity in education. And actually in 2022, they signed the Declaration for Inclusion and Diversity in Education, which was really a landmark decision for Jordan. The next area is really building this responsive, resilient, and adaptable education system. And we saw, of course, with COVID-19, that the Ministry of Education, because they had an education sector plan, because they had a partnership and coordination structure, were really able to respond to the challenges of COVID-19 in a very structured and quick manner, as well as when the government of Jordan, under the leadership of His Majesty the King, have launched an economic modernization vision, and the education sector with the Ministry of Education as a line ministry, as a principal actor for this, they were able to really mobilize very quickly and respond to the needs of the EMV and what was outlined in the EMV because they had the education sector plan and because they had a strong partnership and coordination structure. I mentioned the partnership and coordination structure, and perhaps the last point I'd like to mention on the slide is really when we look at the investment in the long-term systems and capacity strengthening. So this is something that has been extremely critical, but then also specifically for the use of quality data evidence for evidence-based policy and planning. And here UNESCO has been investing in the Ministry of Education's education sector, education management information systems, their MS, for over 10 years, actually. And this long-term investment has really paid off in terms of having the enabling environment, but also the technology that's in place to allow the Ministry of Education to really use data for evidence-based policy and planning, which of course is very critical in order to manage the SDGs. Next slide. So just to conclude here, I wanted to highlight a little bit some of the lessons learned from UNESCO's perspective in terms of system strengthening and in terms of implementing a very large an ambitious program like the System Strengthening Program. And I think the first point is that really strengthening education systems. So system strengthening really is a long-term commitment. It's something that takes time. It's something that takes patience. And the results are very much worth this patience. But it's not something that can be done very quickly or short-term or in kind of short-term projects. So it's something that you need to find the appetite also for this long-term system strengthening. The second point is that processes are also as important as the outcomes, and this maybe is related also to the last point that I have on the slide. And when it comes to capacity strengthening for national institutions and education stakeholders, and so how do we do the capacity building? There are multiple ways of doing that, and of course there's some of the more traditional ways that we include in our program implementation, like training, like on the job, whether it's on-the-job training or and day-to-day training, or kind of a full-on training session and training programs for education administrative staff at the government. But what's also very important is implementing the proper processes and tools in place, because this helps with the institutionalization and the long-term capacity building and sustainability of the program. And then the final thing is really looking at the enabling environment. And this, again, is very much related to the spirit of what's in the System Strengthening Partnership Program, which is really not just looking at what happens at a human resource level, but also looking at the policies, legal frameworks that also exist and that also help govern the education system as well. So they all go hand in hand, and they all are what's really important to lay the foundations for a strong education system that can be very much responsive, and that can be responsive, transformative, and that of course can help lead the SDG 4 goals and targets. So that's, I think, next slide. Yeah, so that is from my side, from UNESCO. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Shireen. Thank you very much. I have been told by our backstopping team that actually Dr. Hadab wasn't in the room yet. I think she was, as you mentioned, Shireen, in a meeting with the ministry right before, and then she may be taking some time to join. So why don't we go, Simon, to your presentation, and then we will try to hear from Dr. Hadab or someone from the ministry at the end, if you don't mind.
Sure, thank you. Yeah, thank you very much, UNESCO, and thank you, Shireen. So indeed, my name is Simon Snoxor, and I am the head of cooperation at the Embassy of Canada to Jordan. Yeah, I apologize about my accent. I'm an immigrant to Canada, so you don't have a nice Canadian accent. But it's a real pleasure to be here and to talk about the education sector, which is a sector in which Canada invests significantly in Jordan because of the massive presence of refugees in Jordan. And we very much appreciate our collaboration with the Ministry of Education and with UNESCO, of course, as well as our other donor partners. Now, I'm a bit jealous of Shireen because she got to show you lots of nice photos of students, of children learning with great big smiles on their faces. But if we go to the next slide, please, we'll see that all I get is a picture of a bunch of officials standing at an event. But that's because I've been asked to talk about the money. Because at the end of the day, you all need the money in order to implement these fantastic programs. And Shireen really did a really good job of explaining just how great the SSP is. So let me just tell you just how great the pooled fund, the multi-donor pooled fund is. It is a extremely helpful instrument in funding UNESCO to do its work with the Ministry of Education. In particular, as a middle-sized donor. So the donors who participate in this multi-donor trust fund are, if I remember correctly, Norway, Switzerland, Canada, and Italy. And we're all middle-sized donors here in Jordan. Some of us are a little bit bigger than others, but we're all pretty much middle-sized. And as middle-sized donors, we don't have the resources in the office to we don't have as much resources as some of the bigger donors. We don't have all of the technical expertise that we might need. And so by collaborating with each other, we can draw on each other's expertise and on each other's tools. For example, Canada has its own fund that we can use for technical assistance, for example, on certain very specific tasks, short-term tasks, whereas other donors have their tools and their separate expertise. So we can share, and that is really essential. And of course, it's all about aid effectiveness. It's all about being as efficient as possible and reducing burdens on the implementing agency. And in this case, UNESCO can produce one report, one document, one program plan for all of us. We're all looking at the same document, and they're not producing many different reports for lots of different donors. Which can be overwhelming for implementing agencies, of course. I spoke a little bit about the complementarity of donors and in terms of how they collaborate. Some donors, of course, have different financial tools. So some will be able to provide budget support, and others perhaps loans. In the case of Italy, in Jordan, and also technical expertise. So it is Norway that, thankfully, Norway has an organization called NORCAP. Many of you may know it, and I'm going to talk about that on the next slide, please. Oh, actually, no, that's coming up. Let me just make a few more points. No, yeah, actually, you're correct. Go to the next one. Yeah, thank you very much. So through this harmonized donor support, we pool our contributions and we reduce fragmentation. One of the benefits of that is that donors all have their own financial processes and financial timelines. Therefore, they all disperse at different moments in the year. Maybe they don't disperse every year. Maybe they just disperse every 2 years or even every 3 years. But by having so many of us working together, again, as you can see in the very boring photo, we are able to disperse at different times as donors, and that creates some predictability for the implementing agency, in this case, UNESCO and the Ministry of Education. and in terms of flexibility, of course, we're very pleased that this kind of mechanism allows, as Shireen was saying before, it allows UNESCO to pivot to new challenges and new opportunities. And she gave the example of COVID, and obviously all the changes that the Ministry of Education had to implement in the context of teaching children in a pandemic. But also she gave the example of the economic modernization vision, which is something that all ministries had to adapt to. And the Ministry of Education was one of the ministries that did this the best. And I work with a number of them, so I can vouch for that. I think I mentioned predictable and multi-year funding. So I think we can move on to the next slide. Thank you. So this is the work of Norway is critical in the multi-donor pooled fund. It is through the organization NORCAP that Norway is able to provide this kind of programmatic technical assistance to the SSP. They're able to provide a package of assistance. So 5 experts is a lot, and they work in all of the different fields that you can see here, and which were mentioned by many of which were mentioned by Shireen in an earlier slide. And these experts are all complementary, and they are in themselves complementary to the work, to the budget support that we provide, and of course play a critical role embedded over the long term in the Ministry of Education. They also provide us donors a window on the Ministry of Education. We can engage with them very easily, and they're very responsive. Really a huge congratulations for Norway for having this fund, this ability to deliver technical assistance like this. These technical assistants, they're supported. They're able to make a difference over the long term. They're not there for a short period of time. And they're able to build systems. And of course, as Shireen was saying, it takes time to build systems, including in the education sector. Next slide, please. So one thing I wanted to say is that this pooled fund isn't actually very expensive. This isn't a massive budget support program that you might provide to, that you might have directly with a ministry or a government. So it's actually relatively inexpensive, and therefore I think it could be replicated in many sectors in many countries in the world, including countries where donor assistance is not as significant as it is in Jordan. Of course, it's key to have the correct implementing partner, and I'm happy to say that, of course, UNESCO plays that role very effectively. It's great to be with like-minded donors, but sometimes you can actually attract non-like-minded donors. In this case, all of the donors are what we, OECD. But sometimes you can actually attract, and I have an example of this in the health sector. There's a Gulf country which is contributing to a multi-donor pooled fund. So that can be very helpful. I also wanted to just say one more thing in terms of donors, which is that the inevitable reality of donors and embassies is that we have a lot of turnover. And so by being able to collaborate with other embassies, we can kind of address that turnover. So when one person leaves from one embassy, another embassy takes up the slack and is able to make up for the absence of somebody else from another embassy, if that makes sense to you. Happy to answer questions. Of course, this kind of donor pool fund works particularly effectively when it is entirely flexible and allows the implementing agency to be adaptable. Sometimes advocacy is required. not, sometimes there are opportunities, sometimes there are challenges. Donors do need to work together. And again, being middle donors, it's really great when it comes to advocacy to be working with other middle donors. It strengthens us. It gives us confidence to speak openly and to advocate for what is needed. And the penultimate point is important because, of course, every situation is different. And there's no doubt we have to recognize here on this call with people from all over the world that back in 2019, in 2018, 2019 in Jordan, it was a special time. It was a time when the whole world recognized the pressures on Jordan, given the significant number of refugees in the country. And many donors rallied around the government of Jordan and the Jordanian people. And this is one example of that. And finally, of course, just to mention that we donors are here to stay. We're committed to Jordan. We're committed to the SSP. And that's critical because education strengthening, as you all know, because you probably know more about it than me, is it's a long-term endeavor, which requires long-term commitment from all of the stakeholders. So on that note, I think that's me finished. Thank you very much. I hope that's helpful, and happy to answer questions at the end. Thanks.
Thank you, Simon. Thank you very much for this. Thanks also to Canada and to the set of donors to this pool fund for your steady support. And actually, without you, wouldn't be obviously able to run this program and this partnership. So thank you again. And conveying one of the messages of one of our participants, that although your pictures were not as captivating maybe as Shireen's, you have a very nice gender balance on them. So kudos for that. I'm not sure if we have Dr. Kalak with us yet. I see Shireen battle language, apparently she is not available. So Shireen, why don't we move ahead with her part? I know that you've been working with her, and this is also her contribution, but the floor goes back to you for her presentation. Thanks.
Yes, thank you, Ernesto, and thank you, Simon. So yeah, I'll convey the apologies of Dr. Khawla. She's been called into an urgent meeting with the minister. So I won't take too much time. I won't go over all the slides that she had, but perhaps somewhere where we should have started for those who are not very familiar with the context in Jordan, just to set the stage here, that we are talking about a low-income country. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that Jordan has been reclassified as a low-income country quite recently. So vulnerabilities in Jordan are increasing, and we're talking about really Jordan being vulnerable also to external shocks and regional shocks as well, right? So we talked a lot about COVID-19, but we should not overlook also the economic aftershocks of the wars in Ukraine, but also the war in Gaza since last year, which has severely impacted the Jordanian economy, and then, of course, by extension, has impacted the public sector and has also impacted those who are in Jordan. So the access and ability to continue with the education has also been, of course, a challenge given these difficult times. Now, I mentioned, I think briefly, that Jordan hosts one of the largest refugee populations in the world. And it's important to also keep in mind that this has been something that has been going on for quite a bit of time with the Palestinian refugees that they've been hosting. UNRWA is a huge key player here in Jordan, but then of course with Syrian and Iraqi refugees. So there's been multiple waves of refugee population and displacement that Jordan has very generously absorbed into their education system. But this has also put severe pressure on the government of Jordan to continue to provide quality and inclusive education despite these challenges. We're also talking about quite a large Ministry of Education. So there are over 4,000 schools. These include public, private, ministry, military schools, and UNRWA schools. Over 200,000 staff and over 2 million students. So you can see that the Ministry of Education's mandate is quite large. And so you know, there are all these challenges that the Ministry of Education face. They need to find very effective ways to be able to respond. And they have made very important global commitments to education. And I have to applaud Jordan for this because they have made commitments for education at the highest levels possible. Here we mention SDGs and Transforming Education Summit, but I just would like to say that, you know, this is really from the government at the highest level to, again, His Majesty the King, who have really made commitments to ensure the right of education for everybody and for all in Jordan. And that has been very important. But of course, to do that, it has been very heavy for them. And this is where programs like the System Strengthening Partnership Program has really helped them to manage the scale of this challenge. And then next slide. The next slide here, we're looking at the national commitments that Jordan made at Transforming Education Summit in September 2022, with, of course, the big umbrella, which was to monitor the progress to accelerate the achievement of SDG 4. Now, the reason why this is all here, I think what's important when we look at this is just to see how ambitious also the Ministry of Education is when it comes to their education commitments. So they have a lot of very pressing priorities. They're very committed to this, but we can see from this list here of commitments at the Transforming Education Summit that these will not be achieved simply by being passive, right? And this is where things like the System Strengthening Partnership Program and strengthening the core policy planning, evidence-based policy-making functions of the Ministry of Education are really critical to enable achieving all of these goals. And so many of them actually, you can see already have the system strengthening component that are included, like, for example, providing adequate sustainable financing. Here, we're not just talking about external financing, but also looking at internal financing mechanisms as well. And increasing the budget of education in Jordan by the government and the allocations, but then we're also talking about, and you have the coordination here, and then crisis and risk management, but you're also talking about a lot of the learning as well. So addressing the learning loss caused during the pandemic, and in looking at the quality of learning as well in schools by increasing pre and in-service professional development. And then there is also a big one that we didn't talk about too much, but it's also one of the 6 domains of the education sector plan. There are 6 of them, and that's technical and vocational education training. And that's really important to the ministry. Part of their public sector reform that they're doing right now is also looking at making these the necessary reforms to increase the skilled labor in the economy to meet the requirements of the labor market as well. So that is an important reform that the ministry has committed on. And again, without system strengthening, it will be very difficult to achieve. So I think we can stop here. I think the other points I touched upon briefly when I talked about some of the strategic achievements. So just in the interest of time, so we have enough time for questions. So Ernesto, over to you.
Thank you very much, Shireen. And it's perfect. I think we're pretty much on time. What I will like to do is, because I've been seeing, I mean, we've been monitoring a little bit the chat, and also, as you know, before you registered, there was a possibility to send some questions. So we've been receiving and lumping some of those questions, putting them together. So maybe we can start addressing those, and then maybe we can indeed open the floor for any participants to ask questions. The first question, and maybe this could be well, either you, Simone, or Shireen, was on the program itself and how does it deal with different aspects such as disabilities. How does it support really people with disabilities, and is it really mainstream within the support that we're giving it? And maybe I'm going to add to it the as well environmental goals. So how does this support or has as a sort of a mainstream consequences the support of the environmental goals and the support of people with disabilities? Over to any one of you would like to take a go.
Sure, thank you for the question. So actually, disability and inclusion and education is mainstreamed. It's at the heart of the System Strengthening Partnership program, because it's at the heart of the Ministry's education sector plan as well, right? So in the education sector plan, I mentioned there are 6 domains. We didn't go over all the details now because it can be quite heavy and technical, but actually they have one domain that is dedicated only to access and equity in education. And so this is where the ministry puts all their commitments and strategic actions when it comes to inclusive education. And of course, disability is included under that umbrella. Now, for UNESCO, this is of course also at the heart of our global mandate, and this is something that we have really worked on with the Ministry of Education when it comes to their definition of inclusion and diversity in education, taking a much larger definition of inclusion and so not just looking at disability, although it's extremely critical and extremely important, but also taking a broader definition in order really to make sure that we're leaving no child behind. And so the SSP program and the areas of system strengthening have really embraced that. And we've embraced that throughout all the thematic areas of the SSP. So for example, for monitoring and evaluation, you have specific indicators that the ministry has committed to monitoring when it comes to inclusion and education. When it comes to their education management information system, you also have specific data fields and data that the Ministry of Education is collecting when it comes to inclusive education. So these are just some of the many examples that we can give to show that really inclusion is included in the heart of the education sector plan, and of course our support through the SSP. Now, for greening education, that's also a very good question. This is something that has also been included here in Jordan under the crisis and risk management strategy, which we are also supporting under the System Strengthening Partnership Program. And we have just recently, with the Ministry of Education and our MPTF partners, we have recently also expanded that to have a little bit more focus on climate change. So still related to crisis and risk management, but a little bit more explicit, and also as part also of the greening education partnership, which UNESCO is also the global secretariat of. So we're building upon this work that's happening at the global level to try to adapt that to Jordan in order to help the Ministry of Education be more responsive. And this, just to link also to Simon and what he was saying about, the beauty of having an MPTF with different partners and different skills, is that we are also able to work with our MPTF partners, not just as donors, but also as resources to help here. So Canada, and Simon can speak a bit more about this, already has a very big environment program here in Jordan. So we're tapping into those resources to help us now design this component of the SSP. With Switzerland, the same thing. NORCAP, they have some expertise as well when it comes to crisis and when it comes to climate change. They have expertise in that. So you see, we're tapping in also not just from a resource point of view, but also from a technical point of view as well. Simon, I don't know if you want to add to that.
I don't have anything to add to that, other than to underline that disabilities and mainstreaming disabilities to all programming in Jordan is a priority for the government of Jordan in general. I understand that Dr. Howler might be online. at this point.
Good evening, everybody. Sorry, good evening, everybody. I'm so sorry for being late, as I have been requested to join a meeting with His Excellency. It was an urgent meeting, so I couldn't excuse, and it is extended for more than the time that it was allocated. So I have the honor to meet you, and thank you for waiting me. If you would like me to talk about the general situation in Jordan and also the SSP, I'm ready to talk. I'm not sure. I trust my colleague Shireen did a very well job, and explain you more and more for these issues. But let me talk about it as or from Ministry of Education point of view. As you know, Jordan is a country that depends on its education on the support of all donors since or for the last 30 years ago, the whole situation is full of political crisis since the Gulf War, the Arabic Spring, Iraqi war, and then after that there is a Syrian conflict, and now Gaza and the whole situation around us. So we are set in a very conflict area, which we used to host several refugees since Iraqi refugees, since returned back of Jordanian people from Kuwait after Gulf War. I'm talking about a period of 30 years of being hosting refugees, and that's also make a very hard pressure on our educational system and other systems, but I'm talking about educational system as it is now our main goal. Now these conflicts or this pressure, let me explain it more in deep. Since 20 years ago, we set a goal that we are targeting to reduce the double shifted schools. We used to operate our schools for double shift, morning shift and night shift, in order to host the most or to reduce the overcrowded in the classrooms. Some of our classrooms included 60 child, which is, I think it is very difficult to implement several or modern methodology in or practicing in teaching within a class of these crowded. So that's why we operated our schools for double shifted. And this adds, it is in a way or another, it is affect negatively the quality of education that provided for our children. We put a target in all our programs to reduce the number of school operated as a double shifted schools. But year by year, we have a pressure on our schools. As much as we constructed new schools, we have to also build still operating our school for a double shift. And even with the Syrian crisis, we need to double the number of schools who are operating as a double shift. This is the situation, and we also having such a program, which is the system thinking program. I think it is a good opportunity. That's look at our program in a level of policy making, in a level of data utilizing, developing strategies such as inclusive education strategies, such as the ESP also. ESP is a very good one to a very good job that we works at the umbrella for all our priorities, and let's driven all our reforming programs. For the SSP, it is not only a fund supporting, but also human resources supporting. Through this program, we host 5 experts who work in several levels at the Ministry of Education. And to be honest, it was a very good opportunities for increasing or enhancing the capacity for our employee at the Ministry of Education, which, to be honest, let me make it frankly, we can get more fund through this, or by enhancing, or by the support that providing from these experts. For example, we some of these experts enhance the capacity for our employee to start building concept notes, concept papers to be submitted to the donors and get fund for some items that, or some issues that we need to fund it. Also, it allows us to create all the conditions that required from that allow us to submit to be a member of the GPE, for example. This is the main issues. This is type of issues that we were able to be benefit from SSP. Also, we enhance the data system that we have, which make tangible issues that we can consider it in order to have the accurate data that may help us in identifying what are the needs, what are the requirement, or what, and to express the needs for our partners. This is the main issues in general about the SSP, and I think I trust my colleague Shireen that she developed more in her time. I'm quickly talking about that. I didn't want to lose the time, as I see some questions or some hand raising. I can't, let me see.
Yeah, many thanks, Dr. Hattab. This is wonderful, and we're so happy that you were able to join us. We were waiting for you, so we're truly glad that you were able to take time to join this this knowledge cafe. Much appreciated. There were some indeed questions in the chat that maybe are referred to what you just mentioned now. So maybe I will just read them out loud. It was from Brienne Pete from the World Economic Forum. And she's asking how were these 10 key strategic interventions of the education plan were identified? Were they developed based on stakeholder recommendations, research findings, or specific analytical frameworks? I don't know, Shireen or Dr. Kalak, if you can briefly answer this one. Over.
Okay, I will explain the issues. I think you, as I understand that, how can the ESP drive our reform? This is the questions. As I understand, please make it clarify these issues for me.
Yes, I think that a question was indeed how were the strategic interventions, the 10 strategic interventions identified? So was it through surveys? Was it through specific analytical frameworks? So it's a bit of a, I guess, technical, very technical question, but over to you.
The 10 strategic, let me see, where is the question? Sorry. The case strategic intervention to support ESP identified where the development places and stakeholder.
Maybe just to add, is this a question? If it's a question on the SSP program, I could answer, but maybe Dr. Khawla, I think it's good to make a link with the public sector reform. I think that will be very helpful. I could briefly answer if it's linked to the SSP program, and simply that when the ESP was developed, then we sat with our partners and the Ministry of Education, this was back in 2018, to really assess, and there was an assessment that was done, a technical assessment to say, okay, how can the ministry absorb the education sector plan and implement and monitor it? And there we were able to find and identify the areas of support, which turned into the 10 areas of strategic intervention under the SSP program. So that's how that was identified. But yes, Dr. Khawla, maybe for the public sector reform, that could be helpful.
My understanding how the ESP identified our priorities, or what are the methodology that we use in order to identify the or maybe the strategic issues that we are dealing with. Look, we have the research findings. We dealt with a specific. We analyzed our situation, our sectors. I think we did several analyses at several levels, and we benefited from other findings and recommendations of other previous programs. We dealt with several issues in order to identify what are the ESP and where we can or we need the support. This is the whole situation, and now we are benefiting from the previous issues in order to launch our new ESP, as we are trying now to identify or analyzing the whole educational systems, also by supporting from UNESCO, in order to identify to build on this analysis, to identify and to identify our or to develop our new ESP. Over to you.
Thank you very much. I'm aware of the time. We only have 5 minutes to close, so maybe I will use my moderator rights here to pose a question that I've been reflecting upon while listening to this interesting intervention, and this is on the test implementation, because most of the attendants from this workshop, they're really from across the globe, most of them from the UN, but not only. We have government, civil sector, civil society. One question that I had is, what would be to you, this is a 1-minute reply if you can, a good lesson learned, or something that you could say it has worked and it could work in other countries in terms of the post Transforming Education Summit commitments. Jordan is obviously one of those who have, as you've shown in the presentations, committed to it, and it has an implementation plan, but many other countries do as well. So what would be, to your view, in a nutshell, a good lesson learned? And maybe we could start by Simon, if you're still with us. If you could just take a go, and then we'll move it. Thanks.
Yeah, sure. I mean, just to repeat really what I was saying before, which is that this kind of system strengthening support from a middle-sized donor perspective is not significantly expensive, but it is extremely effective, both for the Ministry of Education and UNESCO, but also for us in terms of aid effectiveness. It's the definition of aid effectiveness. It's as good as we can get given our constraints. Thanks.
Thank you. Shireen?
Yeah, I would say really this idea of having a common plan and a common strategy that we're all working together to achieve. And the Transforming Education Summit, I think the commitments that the ministry made there really helped everyone rally around once again why we are doing this. So system strengthening to what end, basically? What is the purpose of the system strengthening? What do we need to achieve jointly together? And by extension of that is the strong partnership and coordination structure that comes with it, because it really takes all these different efforts together in support of the Ministry of Education and the education sector in Jordan in order to really reach these very ambitious but very important goals.
Thank you, Shireen. Dr. Hatta, do you have any final thoughts about this?
Yeah, thank you. I think we have a good opportunity in order to invest more in with our partners and work together as soon as as the SSP is being extended, and we have more fund that we can invest in, also in new items, which is green building nows. And I think this is a good opportunity for us to benefit more and more, and to build our system and to strengthen our systems, as we have good relationship with all our partners, and this will maybe reflect to our education systems. Now we have a tangible movement. We have a new structure for the Ministry of Education. We have new ESP. We have a new, also we are working under the EMV, which is a good and ambitious plan for reforming all over the situation, all over kingdom and all over sectors. I think we have a good opportunities, and in a personal perspective, I do believe in we as the solve for each problems, and because we can have a way to deal with all our challenges, and hand in hand we can overcome with all these obstacles and challenges and enhance our educational systems. Over to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for those very, very deep words, and for your participation again into this Knowledge Cafe series. So colleagues, friends, thank you all for your participation today. My colleagues will post links to the relevant IPPN community spaces, including the link to find this recording, the presentation, and all the relevant links that we shared during this session. There will be more activities planned in 2025 on this network, so please keep tuned in. As for the final note, let me warmly thank UNDP colleagues and the other sister UN agencies and members of this IPPN network for allowing UNESCO, or for inviting UNESCO to be part of this well-reputed and successful Knowledge Cafe series. And we definitely look forward to continued engaging with this initiative. And thanks again. Have a good afternoon, evening, morning, wherever you are. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much. Bye. Thank you.
Bye.